All right, next game we're talking about, Dolan. Getting to the Saturday slate. We got South Carolina at Clemson. It's a noon Eastern time game on ESPN. The playoff implications are both teams are still alive for an at-large bid when nobody really thought so going into last weekend at least. So neither of them are in the playoff at the moment, but that can certainly change because right now, at least in the AP poll, we're recording this before the college football playoff rankings drop tonight, but in the AP poll, there are 2 of the first 4 teams out, and the winner of this game might only need 1 or 2 of the current at-large teams to slip up in order to take over and get into the field with a major win like this one to end their season. Obviously, of the 2, Clemson is more likely to receive the bid. Right now, I think they're the higher-ranked team in the AP poll at least, and they only have 2 losses while South Carolina has 3 losses. And also, there's also a chance that Clemson could get an automatic qualifying bid as the ACC champion, but they would need Miami to lose to Syracuse, a game that we'll preview a little bit. They would need that to happen, and no matter what happens, if Clemson could lose to South Carolina and still make the ACC title game, because this is not a conference game, obviously. So that could be an avenue for Clemson. South Carolina, their only avenue is getting in as an at-large team, but they've been red hot recently, winning their last 5 games after starting 3-3 on the season. Their conversation is very interesting because Alabama and Ole Miss are also fighting for the last few spots, and they both beat South Carolina this year and also have 3 losses. So they have the same record as South Carolina and the head-to-head advantage over South Carolina. But South Carolina's been a little hotter than those 2 teams have so far in the last few weeks as well. So it's weird. If South Carolina wins this game, obviously it's a major win for them. Maybe they can jump 1 or 2 of those and get into it. But it's a little weird for South Carolina. So we'll see what happens at the very end of it. But this would be a big game for them to move up even further in the ranking.
Their 3 losses, though, are a little bit different than those of Alabama or a team like Ole Miss, right? Their 3 losses are a very close game to LSU, a very close game to Alabama, and they did get dominated by Ole Miss. That was the worst game they played all season. But South Carolina, here's what I can tell you. I think, 1, how much is it, what have you done for me lately? And like you mentioned, they've been raging hot during this 5-game win streak. And 2, I'm going to tell you something. Whoever is at home in the playoffs in that first round, this might be the team they do not want to see because they're extremely talented. They have one of the best defenses in the country that can play and they can play with and stop anybody. And their offense is getting better and better every single week. Lenora Sellers getting better. They can run the football. They got some young weapons who are starting to get it going. I think South Carolina, if they were to get in, would be a team that no one wants to play. They have a ton of talent.
They have a lot of talent, especially defensively, which I'll talk about in just a second, Dalton. But you have the South Carolina offense in this game with Lenora Sellers playing a lot better recently. So what should we be looking out for when they have the ball?
He is. So there's a handful of things that are making this passing game better because earlier in the year, this team was about playing elite defense and running the football with Sellers and with Rocket Sanders, right? The passing game has slowly gotten better the last 5 weeks. And yes, South Carolina fans, I absolutely hear you. Lenora Sellers is playing better lately. He's getting better. I know. He's making better decisions under pressure. I think he's taking less unnecessary deep shots. I think you're just seeing a guy who's getting a little bit more comfortable, especially with the speed of the SEC game. But a second thing I want to focus on here, along with Sellers, is South Carolina making his life a little bit easier, right? I think the screen game has gotten a lot better as the year has gone on, and this is what I want to show you. Max, their first 7 games of the year, they were outside the top 100 in yards after catch per reception, all right? The last 4 weeks, they're first. Their receivers are first in yards after catch per reception, first in yards after contact, first in missed tackles, and this team is creating right now, the last 4 weeks, the 7th highest rate of explosive passes in the country, okay? They don't throw it a ton. It's right around actually 50-50 run and pass. They're still a balanced team, but their weapons are doing a terrific job. It's Rocket Sanders out of the backfield. Josh Simon at tight end is on an absolute burner. Yeah. Nick Harbor's a good player. DeLayvin Campbell. They've got weapons now who are making things happen after the catch. Okay, and what that's doing is allowing Lenora Sellers not to have to chuck it downfield, right? I honestly think his skill set, when I watched him, earlier in the season, is a little bit like Jalen Milroe, where it's a lot of home runs and running the football and taking shots downfield. Well, right now, I think he's doing better taking easier throws, 15 yards and under, and allowing these athletes to work in space and then taking shots when they're actually there in single coverage, slot fades, corner routes, and one-on-one, things like that. There's a better balance in this offense right now, but I think a big part of it is this core of weapons making things happen after the catch and the play calling being just a little more conservative and waiting on the home run balls. It's a balanced offense right now, and they're getting extremely dangerous, and Sellers is running it very, very well.
It's amazing that they are the best best in the country over the last few weeks in terms of yards after the catch. When they lost, their best yak receiver seemed like in Juice Wells going over to Ole Miss, and yet they're still destroying it after the catch.
And they did struggle, like I mentioned, the earlier part of the season. They were, in all of those categories, they were outside the top 100 in the country. It was really bad. They did not make plays after the catch, and all of a sudden they're just doing it at an elite level.
That probably has to do with Lenora Sellers just chucking it so much in the early part of the season, right? Because obviously when you're throwing it deep downfield, it's hard to get yards after the catch. Whereas now, like you said, he's being more conservative now. That now you can get more yards.
And
after the catch.
He's done a much better job of taking checkdowns as opposed to earlier in the year, the first half of the season, he had this panic in the pocket, and I think his passing grade under pressure was under a 30. And right now it's in the 60s, which actually under pressure is pretty good. He's making better decisions under pressure and late in the plays, taking checkdowns. If Sanders is open underneath on a swing when he doesn't see his first read or two, okay, so be it. Let them work after the catch. I think he's done a much better job of just taking positive plays, and his receivers are allowing that elite production to happen. I look at something like the game-winning play against Missouri, the shovel screen to Sanders. That's it right there. Better screen game, better after the catch, and then their more traditional passing sets, Sellers is making better decisions.
Yeah, so my matchup to watch on the other side of the ball against one of the best defenses in America is, all right, can Clemson establish the run in this game? Because to put it simply, South Carolina's pass defense has been basically impenetrable this year. Right now, the Gamecocks are third in the nation in defensive grade on passing plays with a 92.8 mark. They are second in pass rushing grade behind Michigan and seventh in coverage grade this year. Cade Klubnik, I will give him credit, has improved dramatically as a passer. He's an 86.7 passing grade this year, 63.9 last year. But it's unlikely that Clemson can win this game off of his arm alone. They could have some success in the run game. Now, South Carolina's run D is still pretty good. It's not really a weakness. They're right now 37th in EPA per run allowed. But it is the one area where opposing offenses have been able to find some success this year. 2 weeks ago against Missouri, they allowed Nate Noel to run for 150 yards on them with 78 coming before contact. Before contact, 78 yards. Over half of his yards came before contact in that game. I will say Missouri has a really, really damn good run-blocking offensive line. They are 7th in the nation in run-blocking grade this year. Clemson is about average. They're 68th right now. But between Phil Maffa and Cade Klubnik as well, the quarterback, Clemson's run game is pretty dangerous. Right now, Maffa is 4th in the ACC with 1,012 rushing yards. Klubnik is 3rd among ACC quarterbacks with 460 yards on the ground. If they can establish the run on early downs, it puts less pressure on Klubnik to have the game of his life against what's an elite pass rush and an elite secondary as well. I think the run game for Clemson is critical in this one because against South Carolina and their D-line and their pass rush and that secondary, I don't know if any quarterback can have a great day against them. And Cade Klubnik, like I said, has been a lot better, but I just can't see Clemson winning off his arm. I think they need the run game with him and Phil Maffa to be really working in this game.
Totally agree. There may not be a more dangerous team in the country on defense in obvious passing situations than the Gamecocks.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just incredible. The level of talent on the defensive line, Dylan Stewart, Tonka Hemingway, Kyle Kennard, TJ Sanders, Brian Thomas Jr. I mean,
those were all NFL players.
All of them NFL
and
players.
Nick Manwari back there.
O'Donnell Fortune and guys like that on the back end. It's a stacked defense. I firmly believe it's one of the 3 best defenses in the country. I really do. I think Ohio State, Texas, and South Carolina, that's the 3 for me. Notre Dame's creeping up too in that mix. But South Carolina, this is an elite defense. I don't think Clemson's seen anything like it this year.
No, absolutely not. So, Dawn, in a game that is surprisingly massive for the college football playoff at-large race, who will win this game?
I'm going to tell you something about Clemson. Okay. They have faced 4 teams that we would consider through our pass rush grades an above-average Power 4 pass rush. Okay. Georgia got blown out. Louisville got blown out. Pitt almost lost.
Yep.
And Virginia Tech, they won that game by 10 points, but Clemson didn't score until after halftime in that game. If you can rush the passer against Clemson, you got a very good chance of beating them. And there's not many teams, if any, that can rush the passer better than South Carolina. Mm-hmm. I like their defense in this game. I like the momentum they have going on offense. Clemson's defense is good, but I don't think it's as elite as we thought it would be or as it's been in past years. I really like, even on the road, South Carolina in this game, and I think their defense and their pass rush is going to bother Cade Klubnik a lot. I've got the Gamecocks 28-20.
Yeah, Louisville had the 13th. Right now has the 13th best pass rushing grade. South Carolina, I misspoke, is third behind Michigan and Mississippi, Ole Miss. So that's the kind of company that South Carolina is in right now. It's an elite pass rush. I also have South Carolina win this game, 27-17. I think the Tigers really struggle to get anything going offensively against South Carolina's defense. And I think South Carolina wraps up its regular season with a 6th straight win. So I know South Carolina, Dawn, is the underdog right now. And I was hoping to make up a game on you by differing on you in this, but I think we're both in line here that I think South Carolina's going to win this game, even though they're 3-point underdogs.
Well, a 2.5, 3-point underdog when you're on the road essentially means the game is a pick 'em, right? And I think I just think South Carolina, this defense, you have to be special on offense to score on this team. And look, Clemson's got a good offense they've shown against some of, especially a lot of the weaker teams on their schedule. But I still look back at that Louisville game that I thought they were going to win, and now they got just utterly dominated in that game. I'm a little worried that Clemson can play with a defense that plays at this level week in and week out.
Yeah, so South Carolina staying alive in the at-large race of the win. And Clemson still technically alive in the college football playoff race, even with a loss, because all they need then is Miami to lose to Syracuse, and Clemson is playing SMU in the ACC title game for an automatic spot as well. So not dead yet for Clemson, even if they lose this game. South Carolina cannot afford a loss, though, obviously, in that one. Hey, thanks for watching another episode of the PFF College Football Show. Please make sure you guys subscribe to the channel.
Also, subscribe to PFF Plus at subscribe.pff.com for all of the same data and grades that we use in our show, plus fantasy tools, betting tools, and our mock draft simulator.